Okay, now let's continue with some compound angles and using more than just one block. Here I'm going to take off the corner of a block, both tilting 45 degrees in two different directions. And then I'm going to drill a hole at the center of that particular little plane that I've created. So how do we do that? Well, we're going to go start with the transform plane again. And on this one, I want the surface of that white triangle that was created there in the corner when we machine this corner off. I want that surface to be my Z0, and I want that hole, the center of that hole, to be my XY0. So how do we do that? Well, we're going to go to a rotary transform plane. I'm going to go 2.5 positive and minus 2.5 negative in my X and Y. And then I'm going to drop down 0.5. So if we look at this center of that hole, it's not all the way to the edge in X, it's not all the way to the front in Y, and it's not along the surface of the Z on the part. It drops down a little bit. So I just stayed a ½ inch off of all three of those arbitrary numbers, but that will give me something, what I'm looking for. And then I'm going to rotate around the Y 45 degrees. I'm going to rotate around the Z this time. Now it's important for you to realize that when we do a rotation, that all three of these fields, the X, the Y, and the Z, all three of these rotate around this original coordinate system. So when I put a Z, it's not rotating around what I now have tilted 45 degrees. Because it's in the same transform plane block, it's going to rotate around the original. I realize that until you get used to that, that may be a little confusing, but I'm going to tip 45 positive in Y, and I'm going to go 45 negative in Z. I've come to that front right corner area of the block, and then I rotated 45 degrees around Y and then around Z, so it's pointing there kind of off to my, to that angle where the hole is going to be. This is how we create a compound angle. Now when you're thinking around the Z, anything rotating, tool moving around the part, not the part moving, anything rotating in a counterclockwise direction is a positive move. So we want to move in a counterclockwise to get to this orientation. So we wanted to move 45 around Y and then rotate around Z 45 to give us that compound angle we're looking for. So once I've done that, my next block, I'm going to do a mill circle. I'm going to put the center of that circle right at 0, 0 because I'm just created the center of that hole on that is going to be my 0, so the center of that field, or the center of that plane that I just cut, is going to be my 0. I'm going to do an 1.5 inch diameter, or an 1.5 inch radius. I'll start at maybe 0.2, but I want to end at Z0. That's important. I want this yellow surface that I'm creating to be my Z0, so all my features are then from that point down. I don't have to add any kind of depth. If I went to the corner of the part, on my transform plane, on my origin point, went all the way to the corner, and I rotated 45 around X and 45 around Y and 45 around Z like I did, and then put a minus ½ inch deep in this mill circle, it would do the exact same thing. However, when I drilled my hole, I would have to add that ½ inch to everything going forward. So I think it's best to create that surface as my Z0. So Z bottom, 0. I'll use tool 1. ½ inch end mill will make it a pocket. And my next block is going to be a holes block. I'm going to drill, using a drill, 0.1 minus 1 inch. Now again, that 0.1 and minus 1 inch is from that yellow surface now because I established that as 0. Had I gone to the corner, which I already told you would have worked, I would have then had to add that ½ inch to my Z start would have been maybe 0.1, but my z bottom would have been minus 1.5. So I'd have to take care of that. I don't want to have to do that, so I create that surface as 0. My tool, let's select a drill from the list. Let's get a fairly large drill, maybe a 3/8. Next hole operation will be my locations. I'm going to drill at 0, 0. So my next block then, since I'm done doing all my machining, will be a transform plane end. Now when I hit draw, I see that I've machined off that corner, just using a mill circle. I could have used a mill frame, lines and arcs, or whatever. And you see that I've got a compound angle that is not 45 degrees around one angle, but around two separate axes. So that's how you do a compound angle.